Sweet. I'm gonna go. Contention 1 is Taiwan war. U.S. primacy in Asia is unsustainable, and clinging creates a hostile China rise that undermines credibility with allies. China will accept U.S. spheres to influence if the U.S. signals accommodation here. In 19, China's pursuing Germany not so hostile. Germany not trying to exclude the United States, indicate a receptivity to peaceful coexistence, overlapping SOI. China's not trying to oppose the systems of neighbor. China could definitely tolerate American military presence unless the president aimed at containing China. China's recognized domination is not achievable. Beijing thinks to return model when China is a primary power. There's little need for military adventures because economic independence prevail, and neighbors have no reason to challenge China interests. China for external ambition will expand because Beijing sees the need to be more assertive in response to external challenges. So over the past decade has been reactive, as well as will settle for peace. Will depend on the United States try to obstruct China's interests. Use primacy is not sustainable. Power projection is eroding relative China's capability. The weakest sequestration could be budgetary priorities. Allies do not pursue that China's being turned. Most decision allies superior increasingly concerned about Washington attempts to security adjusting clause to head against unreliability. The region has doubts about Washington ability and willingness to support primacy. Reinforce Beijing's belief the United States seeks to keep it subordinate. This would increase the chance of an aggressive posture. Be hostile to Germany become a self-fulfilling prophecy. Washington should de-escalate instead pursue a long-term stable balance of power. And absent accommodation, spirals escalate into military conflict. Swain in 19, suspicions increase the likelihood of U.S. China crisis as a result of failure to resolve Taiwan. China's continued growth in military and economic power to decline in U.S. maritime predominance will eventually create an unstable rough parity. Cause China to overestimate its leverage on Taiwan. Cause the United States to overreact without a clear sense of red line. Without reassured understandings on intention, miscalculation could escalate into test relative result. Result could be a military conflict. This should lead to a stable balance in Asia, diffusion of conflict through mutual accommodation. And ending arms sales is key. Other options fail because China cares about Taiwan way more than the U.S. does. Gomez in 15. The area most important for Chinese domestic politics is the Taiwan trade. The status quo on this trade will be unsustainable. China improves its military capabilities. The growing power of the Chinese military, especially its naval missile forces, have been eroding qualitative advantage. Military intervention by the United States will be met with formidable Chinese resistance. A2AD complicated to its ability to protect power. The best option for preventing a war is deepening a strategy of combination, institutionalizing dollar, promoting confidence building, establish mutual trust. A halt on arms sales benefit U.S.-China relations by removing a major settlement block for developing bilateral military tells. Halting sales does not mean that Taiwan's self-defense force would cease to exist if the Chinese respond positively. Beijing signals a commitment to accommodation. America does not have many other viable alternatives. Preventing conflict, increasing military spending would be difficult to sustain so long as China's spending is also growing. Deterrence through protection, so relies on intervention by outside powers. Any conflict that Taiwan trade will lead to a major war between U.S. and China, and to American weapon purchase could bring negotiation with China. And recent arms sales are a red line. They inflame Chinese nationalism while cementing containment. Lee in 19. Taiwan's new plan to alter the military balance of Greenland for defense to offense might be crushed. Trump has shown unprecedented willingness to escalate tension with China. If the sale of F-16V planes would be an indication that Taiwan independence is critical to U.S. strategy, keeping the PLA confined to the first island chain. This would be a similar blow to Xi's plan. Xi implied that unification was historic. Xi is being criticized. The legitimacy of the party would not survive the loss of Taiwan. The pressure will be immense. And Taiwan deterrent strategies failed. China is motivated by sacred commitments and will risk everything for Taiwan. More than 14 analysis employs 28 Chinese and 30 American IR experts about statements about Lee's conclusion. The best scholarship, sacred commitments, are the single most important reason China won Taiwan back enough to risk war with the United States. Commitments not like religious practitioners go beyond pragmatic utilitarian materials. Sacred commitments should be distinguished from core interests, including development, security, Tibet, Xinjiang, the SES, and the East is comparable to Taiwan. Taiwan is fundamental because it's a single to remaining inhabited Chinese territory, not return to the motherland. China is more emotional for the average Chinese people than the officials letting Taiwan go with cutting of the people, leading to a loss of political legitimacy to be opposed to China politics shift in nationalism. Taiwan became a litmus test for leaders, for younger leaders. There could be no compromise. China's identity and mainland has been constructed to include Taiwan history and Trump's indignation propagated by China's media and education is a powerful part of emotions and national indignation of foreign powers stretching Taiwan away from China to allow Taiwan to leave is tantamount to treason, a threat to the party. Material-driven realist approach might have expected strategic value. Actual independence is not much important. Secret commitments were found most salient. China's willing to go to war for Taiwan, even means war with the United States. Either strategic, long-term, or short-term material interests appear to be driving its calculation, despite the cost of commitments really given application to Taiwan alone. Though economic advance rates the cost is not clear, less than the danger of conflict. Little evidence that material-driven security concern drove China's policy would not have been very fruitful to employ realist approaches. Sino-American relations and the status quo presents a unique risk of conflict. Size victory is cemented cross-strait tensions and ensures Chinese retaliation. Carpenter 129. Tensions between Taiwan and the PRC have been historically high. The situation is about to get even worse. The TPP's victory in 2016 came as a rude awakening. Beijing conducted provocative military exercise in the Taiwan trade, intensified its warnings that Taiwan could not continue to refuse to negotiate unification. Size election or emphatic endorsement of size uncompromising policy toward the mainland. Her initial comments escalated tension. We are already an independent country already. Tsai again rejected Beijing's one country, two systems. 80% of Taiwanese reject the idea. Chinese militaries might conclude they have no alternative except to greatly intensify military pressure. Washington needs to carefully reassess its own policy. Trump is increasingly supported by Taipei, approved a $2 billion arms sale. Such as likely become the new normal U.S. security relationship. Beijing views such measures with great irritation. Washington needs to proceed cautiously. Relations because between Taiwan and the mainland become even more confrontational. America should not exacerbate an already volatile situation. And that war goes nuclear because Chinese nuclear conventional forces are intermingled. Talmage and 18. China's increased pressure on Taiwan. Military combination for Chinese campaign against Taiwan seems plausible. China has nukes intermingled with conventional forces, making it difficult to attack one without the other. Conventional forces generate pressures to escalate U.S. operation and danger China's nuclear forces. Chinese leaders might think that Washington aimed beyond the conventional war. Beijing might conclude that nuclear escalation was a viable option. Most worse than flashpoints Taiwan. China could decide that the window for gaining control is closing, launch attack using air force to blockade Taiwan harbors or bombard the island. China could use its submarines to blockade Taiwan harbors to attack U.S. forces. Use anti-submarine campaign. Its boomers leading China's leaders unsure, adding China's sense of vulnerability. Favor U.S. strategy and danger China's nuclear arsenal. Wartime violence could shift China's assumption about U.S. intention. Beijing might see nuclear escalation as a way to end the conflict. The China could use nuclear weapons to destroy U.S. air bases. Thus, escalation appears far-fetched. China's history suggests otherwise. And reducing arms sales signals U.S. threat reduction, reverses containment, Gillian 10. Washington has to scale back arms sales, demilitarize the conflict, holding back sales, or rejecting Taiwan as a militarized base, saying that Washington is protecting China's territorial sovereignty, reluctantly to force reduction by China's hold end to Taiwan-focused drills and finalize Taiwan would improve the chance that peacefully rising China, Taiwan could create a model for peace resolution China's many conflicts throughout Asia. Now onto the plan. The United States federal government should implement a substantial reduction in direct commercial sales and foreign military sales of arms from the United States to Taiwan. Contention 2 is relations. Current U.S.-Taiwan arms deals threatens cooperation across the board. Chung and 18 relations are already strained. We urge the United States to immediately cancel this deal to avoid doing serious damage to relations and cooperation in important areas. Analysts said Beijing was likely to retaliate, much more confident now in a position to take countermeasures than was before. U.S. is to work in areas like CT, non-proliferation, to see China to cooperate while hurting China's interests, timing infuriated Beijing. But the plan de-escalates tensions and builds strategic trust. Lieberthal and 12 weapon sales to Taiwan review to Beijing is confirming American determination to interfere in China's domestic affairs, permit peaceful unification, harming Chinese foreign interests. Lack of discussions contribute to enhancing mutual trust, reducing the chance of peace in the strait. And the global non-proliferation regime is on the brink of failure. That ensures cascades of horizontal proliferation, but increasing the regime's efficacy solves new nuclear states. Carlson and 19, there are major challenges in non-proliferation regime, including major violators, namely Iraq, Romania, North Korea, Libya, Iran, Syria, the spread of nuclear technology, designs limit AA's capability, Argentina, Brazil, Israel, Venezuela, Saudi Arabia plans to name a nuclear activity. States maintain that additional protocols, voluntary states with additional protocols should persuade and insist the holdout states, empty provision on horizontal proliferation, counter the spread of nuclear weapons to additional states. And China is the key player on preventing proliferation. A U.S. concession on Taiwan is key to unlock further cooperation. Him and 18, China's engaged in issue linkages as a bargaining tactic by linking its non-proliferation to U.S. policy towards Taiwan. Strategies can be used for blackmail. China occupies the pivotal position to prevent proliferation, a major source of nuclear technology supplier missile. Beijing has provided several states with nuclear assistance. China has a strong influence. UNSC, AIA, multilateral negotiation. China has provided support to proliferation in Pakistan, North Korea, Iran. China has determined impact where their efforts to curb proliferation fail or succeed. Linkage is most likely for counterbalance influence over major interests. The U.S. wields influence over Taiwan, particularly sales to Taipei, to China preventing Taiwan independence. The core interest use arms transfers or an unwelcome interference. And arms sales are the single sticking part. Hardline U.S. policy ensures that China spoils non-proliferation. Him and 18. Beijing used non-cooperation of non-proliferation as a tool of retaliation. China started linking its non-proliferation policy to U.S. policy in unrelated areas. China expected U.S. concession on Taiwan arms sales to cooperate in preventing proliferation. China has retaliated when the United States hurt China's interests. China uses system proliferators as a bargaining tool. China's leaders will continue to use it. China maintains leverage over non-proliferation. If the U.S. were to isolate China, it could expect reduced Chinese cooperation. Containing China and preventing proliferation may be incompatible. And nuclear proliferation causes nuclear war. Code 15, the threat is nuclear war. The more serious, the greater probability. Before MAD, new nuclear states go through a transition period in which they lack a secure strike capability. One or both might believe there's incentive to strike first. The state with the nuclear advantage might believe it has splendid first strike capability. Might feel used and will lose some pressure due to reciprocal fear of surprise attack. One might set war in the war that believe that war is inevitable. In the world of MAD, there's still risk. One is not to resort to rationality. Of course, leaders might choose limited war could result in devastating nuclear exchange. And empirics disprove Chinese revisionism. Jalil 19, China showed less revisionist tendency. China's donor and revolutionary rhetoric takes the pursue a cooperative approach with India, Myanmar, Nepal, Pakistan, Russia, Vietnam. China engaged in the international community. Asia is a regional institution. APEC era after the summit. China is an active member in the UN. Membership W from 21 to 52. Membership WTO. Tariff price declines. CPEC focus on economic development, regionalization instead of hegemonic behavior. China's plays a stabilizing role and no-co talks. America weapon sales to Taiwan encourage veterans to insist the SES US increase interference under FON ops. China is not of expansionist designs. Market at expansionist designs.
Cool. You good?
Yeah. So I didn't read the last card on either, or the last card on either advantage, and I marked Jillo.
All right. Cool.
Mm-hmm.
Yes. Yeah.
Yeah.
Cool. Does the plan cause reunification?
Sorry?
Does the plan cause reunification?
We don't think that's necessary for solvency. Even if China occupies Taiwan, the U.S. doesn't get drawn in. But the Gilly evidence says the most likely scenario would be Finlandization. So it's not a full reunification, but it's also not completely distinct.
Okay, so the most likely scenario is what reunification?
Is Finlandization. So pretty much that means nominally Taiwan would be under China as a country, but functionally and politically they would have distinct systems. Again, I'd like to stress that that is not key to our internal links. Whatever China does vis-a-vis Taiwan post-plan, we still think the 1AC is solvent.
Okay. So it's like Finlandization scenario, how does that do like the TRA, which says that the US has to intervene to help Taiwan?
So the TRA is not legally binding. The TRA is not legally binding, which is to say that the president does not have to intervene. The only reason in the SQO that Trump would intervene is because of credibility concerns, right? There's nothing legally making Trump do that. But the plan severs those credibility concerns and signals to the world that, the US has not given Taiwan a blank check, which means in a time of crisis, there is no longer that pressure, which is the only thing forcing Trump's hand in the status quo.
Okay, perfect. So you talked about a global signal about credibility. So how does this impact our alliances with other countries in the region?
I mean, we haven't read evidence really like about alliance perception. The one that gets closest really is here that says alliance perception is decreasing now because China is gaining parity and is proliferating asymmetric capabilities, which means allies already perceive the United States kind of pivot to Asia as decreasing. It also speaks to those allies' perception of US overreach and says accommodation with China is a much more sustainable route, both towards stopping China war, but also towards long-term alliance structure, because allies know that we can't balance China indefinitely, and they would prefer accommodation rather than hostile balancing.
Okay, what card substantiates the claim that like allies know it's unsustainable to contain
the HERE evidence?
China?
It directly says that. It says allies know that China via A2AD, US budget sequestration, know that US is shifting away from the region, and that China is gaining parity both economically and militarily.
Cool. The linkages stuff, how do we know that China will follow through and reduce proliferation?
So our evidence on that page, specifically the Chung evidence and the internal link HIM evidence, talks reverse causally about proliferation. It gives empirical examples based off public statements and Chinese actions and says that China has publicly tied non-proliferation to the Taiwan issue. The plan gives them an incentive to cooperate on proliferation because they're using that as a bargaining tool to retaliate. Post-plan, there's nothing for them to retaliate against.
You said like public statements and all that. Why should we trust what China says in public to determine their actions?
Again, they're doing that not just in a vacuum, but in backlash to U.S. bargaining over Taiwan.
You said like public statements.
Or that's time.
Right. Cool. Why should we trust one and C?
I sent out the 1 and C. The order will be 4 off, the Taiwan war advantage, the relations advantage, and then another off. Is anyone not ready?
1 second.
Okay.
Yeah, 1 sec. Sorry, I'm still pulling it up. All right. Yeah, I'm good.
I'm good as well.
Okay. Anyone not ready? First off is to reduce or first sweeping measures to establish qualitative or quantitative ceilings on weapon exports. Plan violates and restricts specific weapons to Taiwan and weapon types. That's Provision 88. Suppliers formulate a position on restriction or reduction of arms transfers, reduction of sales, entails disapproval or embargoes of specific states, councils, states, or types of weapons. The reduction includes sweeping measures such as qualitative or quantitative limits or ceilings designed to curtail exports. Voters for competitive equity, letting them pick and choose the weapon systems, multiply the country of the weakest, unlimited, and minimizes topic generics. Links to topic generics. Then next off, the counter plan. The Defense Trade Advisory Group ought to recommend that the United States federal government implement substantial reduction of direct commercial sales and foreign military sales of arms from the United States to Taiwan, solves the case and avoids politics in formal meetings, avoids scrutiny. That's Morrison and Group 8. DTAG doesn't invite scrutiny. It doesn't take place in working groups, not open to the public. It's very informal. We're just probably people trying to do something. DTAG advice on issues both there and abroad. It recommended the government lift a ban. Restrictions were lifted. DTAG's members get access to regulators and policymakers in ways not advocates. Don't you have an occasion to keep nagging people to pressure the State Department into changing rules? Next off, the import limitation comment. Taiwan should implement a substantial reduction on the purchase of arms through direct commercial sales and foreign military sales from the United States. It's competitive and legitimate. State Assats 76 proposal for restraining arms use one of 3 methods. There's registration suppliers, restrict shipments, and recipient countries limit imports. Solves the case consumers can cancel. That's CFMH 7. The purchaser may cancel with respect to any items prior to delivery of defense articles or preference of defense services. The party initiating cancel shall be responsible for costs. Next off is the politics. Is that Corona relief bill passes now? Bipartisan balance is key. That's Carney and Lane for 16. Republicans want to pass a standalone bill. Democrats want to add $100 billion for hospitals, $150 billion for states, and a boost in food assistance. The congressional GOP have shown no signs of backing down from their clean bill. But Trump told senators that he could support a deal that included additional money. Democrats and Republicans can work together to find a solution here. There were signs of breaks among Dems. Schumer showed reporters read once there is no reason a deal couldn't be reached. Negotiations are continuing. Hopeful they strike a balance. Plan kills it, mobilizes the arms industry, and crushes the base. That's hard. 16 arms deals are way states in some of the flow, but they've yet to overcome the cloud of the arms industry. Collapse in small business relief tanks the economy. That bill is key. That's Bartek et al. 413. Small businesses are facing existential threat. Businesses with fewer employees are account for 48% of the American jobs and 43% of GDP, and essential part of the U.S. economy. They're financially fragile with little cash on hand. Our resources are about for financial shock at the throes of coronavirus. For these small businesses to serve as an engine of American innovation, they need aid. The CARES Act sets aside loans and assistance. 45% of small businesses were temporarily closed, employment down to 40% since the end of January. Small businesses were extremely cash starved. The vast majority had less than 2% months of cash on hand. This highlights the importance of streamlining and getting money to your business quickly. Delays in deploying aid will likely have a significant negative impact on business reliance. The CARES Act and Paycheck Protection Program is offering unprecedented loan support for small businesses, a much needed lifeline for many. Econ decline goes nuclear. That's Johnson 15. Deterrence raises the cost of conflict, but negative trade expectations generate tensions leading to trade wars. This increases risk of military conflict, decision for war, taken by very few who act on future expectations of leaders anticipate their decline in building extra independence and refusing to be hurt by nuclear arms. A shift could happen abruptly. Taiwan war advantage first. F-16s are key to deterrence battlefield awareness, disrupts China's invasion capability. That's 3A16. The F-16s are game changer because they feature Northram's government saber. A lot of each pilot acts as a theater, able to support and track dozens of targets, including hard to track low flying stealth fighters, drones that has long range. Saying the airspace ahead of the jet for signatures caused by aircraft engines. U.S. air dominance fires is a disruptive regional event that substantially increased the amount of time for China to present a credible invasion threat. Every global hotspot goes nuclear, and Chinese expansion triggers their impact by collapsing the economy. That's Brent 15. American pacifier limited arms using competition during aggression in Washington back away global stability with suffering securing competition might reawaken by Russia, Europe, and China might world uncertainty past Iran stroke proxy wars. It is hard to imagine increasing stability would produce robust cooperation to deal with pandemics, pandemic might be economic consequences of enormous prosperity as coming into climate security one cannot predict. This would ensure to all causes the war. U.S. deploying intermediate range missiles and withdrawal from the INF. That's voted 816 or 86. Sorry, China will take counter to the U.S. deploys intermediate range missiles with Washington plans to do within months. Use withdrawal from the INF would have a direct negative impact on the global strategic stability. China has no intention of joining nuclear weapon production talks. The relations advantage. 1. The plan sparks East Asian arms racing. That's 118. Because of issue linkages, the state's concession on one could cause the adversary to raise out of it, resolve it. Another similar issue, concession on another similar issue could lead allies to doubt credibility. This could cause the allies to embark on a military buildup. The U.S. committed to Taiwan's linked to credibility for demanding allies in Asia, given similarity in geographical location. Japan would see a combination of China's weak narrow views resolving to lead to Detroit or relax its constitutional constraint on armed forces. Remilitarize Japan would amplify security concerns across the region. 2. All causes terrorist stomp Chinese relations. Prophet 9/11. If U.S. companies realize the U.S. government is not going to support their investment, they will make other plans. The factors are related to decoupling Trump's share for targeted auto parts racks, which GM wants electric Cadillacs, but they may no longer be viable. Decoupling means dismantling physical national linkage with the U.S. and China. They would official blocking undersea capable backed by Google, faced with architectural Washington relationship with Beijing is crumbling. 3. All causes. China will leverage pro for missile defense in Tibet. That's MHE. Several other issues. China has linked pro non-proliferation policy. China Washington missile defense efforts have been on welcome actions that China perceives support of the Tibetan, which agencies is violating crucial national interests. 4. All causes. Coronavirus. Lebanon 325. Trump is pushing the UN to call attention to the Chinese origin of coronavirus. Trump's Chinese diplomats are enraged. This news comes amid finger pointing and Trump is repeatedly blamed China for its spread. 5. All cause media. That's my 318. China has warned is more change for direct region, larger explosion before reporters tension already locked warns that retaliate cycle the right course to this game and rivalry. China will be forced to take further countermeasures. 6. Arms deals don't hurt relations. U.S.-China ties are always restored. That's link 15. Taiwanese independence no longer impede relations. That clarify the position the U.S. would not see Taiwan provoke China. This made it clear the U.S. did not support independence. Nor attempts to made a job and the balance nor should arms so Taiwan be regarded as a very relations. The weapons Taiwan receives do little offensive capabilities. China's period, because as I mentioned, the military context failed to inflict damage on relations. Beijing understands Taiwan's weaponry do not pose a threat. The maritime counterplan. The United States federal government should establish a regional East Asian cooperative maritime security partnership model of the Global Maritime Partnership Initiative to establish a cooperative framework that includes but is not limited to disaster relief, information sharing, crisis consultation, joint exercise and operations, environmental protection, measures to avoid incidents, measures to maintain seaborne trade, resource management, anti-piracy, and anti-traffic efforts. The United States should invite all East Asian countries to join the partnership and should immediately begin cooperative efforts with any country that agrees. Counterplan solves the entire case, makes forces non-aggressive. That's Montgomery 13. The U.S. should engage its partners in China, cooperative maritime security, and evaluate premises, powers, adversarial. The U.S. should propose an East Asian maritime partnership inviting all that share its interests in passage and civilians to being engaged in peaceful market trade should not be threatened. These could be about information sharing, crisis consultation, consultation, joint exercise, and operation applies to threaten, refrain from force, threaten neither the U.S. nor China will reduce sea power such they could reduce mistrust that trigger hostilities. Everyone would join, but only if the U.S. maintains military backing, prevents Chinese decisions. That's Government 13. States must don't expand U.S. security relationships. The U.S. cannot build its what allies out of fear of China disapproved capabilities might be possible. The U.S. needs to maritime security with allies. Chinese decisions that the goal of U.S. Our containment measure increase China's stake in the regional arrangement that disseminated isolation and collective security can be transformed in alliance with against any wayward participants. One, Chinese perception they made that F-16 alone is an effective deterrent. That's 19 on case. H-6K bomber faces a serious obstacle mission hardening Taiwan. The F-16 fleet Taiwan F-16 infiltrated joined the Chinese bomber formation. F-16 maneuvers showed the determination of pilots to deny accessibility, shadow the motion of F-16A bombers. Pilots started to provoke the Chinese pilots. The pilots were quite skilled in operating according to press here and never wearing anything that H-16A bombers would penetrate the country's airspace. The F-16 effective deterrent covered as the weapons of Persian additional 66 F-16 jets equipped with the APG-86 radar. Okay, I'm good for cross-ex.
Cool. You good?
Yep.
Okay, so this DTAG counter plan, this is a private entity, correct?
It's part of the it's a group part of the United States federal government.
It's in the USFG?
Yeah.
Okay, so you've read evidence on politics that defense lobbies and politicians love arms sales. Why would the State Department and the DoD listen to a non-binding opinion?
Because so first, the lobbyists. So the evidence about politics and defense lobbyists lobbying arms sales doesn't apply because the Defense Trade Advisory Group itself is fiated to advise it, which means that the lobbyists don't apply.
Yeah, well, but obviously lobbyists can lobby against that advisement. Like, why would the Department of State ever listen to a non-binding agreement, given that you've said they love Taiwan arms sales?
No, the argument is like empirically on arms sales like decisions, the Department of State has listened to specifically the DTAG over all other agencies, things like that. We'll have later cards if we extend it about like agency structure being able to like shield overstretch, like shield highly controversial issues. So like it prevents overstretch.
The status of all the counter plans is conditional?
Yeah.
So first, let's talk about this appeasement turn. Where have you read an internal link to U.S. leadership?
Which appeasement turn?
On the Taiwan war. You say every global hotspot goes nuclear and brands as an impact to hedge. Where have you read an impact?
Oh, stopping the F-16 sale. So we have two pieces of evidence. First, the card that he sent out about specifically the H-6K bombers and the F-16 heated deterrence evidence, which is above it, which talks about deterrence and how we have to stop Chinese expansionism.
But yeah, like you maybe at best you have a link to Chinese expansionism. Then you've read an impact about, quote, the American pacifier, like literally leadership. If Washington backed away from this role, that's a quote from your brand.
That's arms sales.
So what
stopping arms sales?
Okay, so let me get this straight.
That's
Your internal link to this DA is F-16s
well, that's one of
are
our
the linchpin of U.S. leadership.
Yeah, they're key to deterrence.
Yeah, but deterrence in one area
the brand,
is distinct from global
you're
leadership.
not talking about the brand's evidence correctly. When it says if Washington backed away, that's stopping arms sales. Stopping arms sales is an example of Washington backing away.
Okay, let's talk about politics. So what is the distinction between SQO levels of growth and like why hasn't Trump lashed out yet, I guess is my question.
In politics?
Yeah.
The politics evidence is about econ decline. That's the impact.
Yeah, and like supply side, like even if you solve US econ, let's say, why do global economic decline from other countries not trigger the impact?
So there are measures in place in specific countries that stop this. Our measures are being stopped right now because of
okay. So you
not
need to
passing
win
bills.
that every other country but the US will recover.
Trump thinks that the PPP is really good, so it doesn't apply right now.
Okay.
He won't lash out at other countries.
Thank you.
Like he won't lash out because of other countries.
I'm gonna take a second to prep. Is it 10 or 8?
I think 10.
Okay. All right. I'll start 10 now.
Yeah, it's 10.
All right, stop prep 903. I'm sending it. All right, it should be sent. Let me know when everyone has the doc.
I just got it.
All right. Is anyone not good? Oh, sorry, I need to give an order. It'll be Taiwan war advantage, the relations advantage, T. Pearson, the maritime cooperation counterplan, the DTAG recommendation counterplan, the counterplan that fiats Taiwan, and politics. All right, is anyone not good? 1 sec, sorry. What? No. Sorry. All right. So good. Cool. At the top of the deterrence office, they have not read a link to this, and we've read evidence, and the evidence saying the F-16s failed. They'd be destroyed by Taiwan, by China on the runway, and they're not a sufficient signal because China overwhelms Taiwan's capabilities. Deterrence fails in general. First is Taiwan's negation for China's identity and regime survival that defies utilitarian calculation. That's more. Second is China only escalates when they're losing. Castor 16, even the PRC comment that would win the Crochet War. It might be the cost is prohibitively high. The PRC historically escalated territorial disputes when its bargaining power is declined, not improving invasion. It's confident the factors will make invasion more palatable. Taiwan decision making forego force, even if they can win a better outcome through war. No evidence linked to them is the branch card. It doesn't say China will take over the globe. It simply says their evidence says that China might be less deterred, but no evidence that they would be able to totally unseat the global hegemon. Shifting balance power means deterrence is unstable. U.S. budget cuts, overstretching the Middle East, Chinese modernization, and A2AD means China can't be deterred anymore. That's here in Gomez research. Disproves the link between our team, the U.S. and Taiwan, and credibility. This logic is wrong. Decades of research, there's little evidence of the country's record for keeping commitments to friends or credibility when predicting whether the United States will defend Japan. Neither Beijing nor Tokyo will look at Taiwan. Accommodation stalls. China has limited aims, will accept peaceful coexistence, cooperation with multilateralism, diplomacy with neighbors, and focus on economic development. Disprove revisionism. That's here. Angelo, they've read a revisionism card in the one end. They've read a revisionism card in the one end. See if this wasn't even a complete argument. No, one see if the obviously the one against two matches. The INF doesn't thumb. It's not about Taiwan war. The plan reverses the perception of containment, which would kind of spill over to how China perceives those forward deployment nukes in the first place. The relations advantage. The F turns the proliferation. China's polar collapse of the global regime, which makes East Asian cascades more likely because the collapse of the entire regime, not just a question of island reliability. Troops outweigh Landuska and 19. The two reasons the Trump's little policy may take less answer is that the U.S. military deployments underscore commitments remain strong as long as the U.S. has forces on its allies' territory. The guarantee is sufficient that the confidence of beneficiaries with military nations remain strong and proliferating allies remains unlikely. But security commitments are collapsing. 5 and 18. The credibility is weakened. The Tokyo's benefits to Asia hedging strategy has not reassured Tokyo. The unstable American commitments is due to increase the ongoing ability to protect military power. The credibility Japan would face bypassing China's deployment from military assets to a DG concept formed by the Navy to overcome China's strategy. It's unlikely to be sustainable. The only geostrategic context makes military operations increasingly costly and reduce reduces the credibility of commitments. There's obviously compartmentalization. Japan is not the same thing as Taiwan. They haven't really read a link saying why Taiwan would spill over to Japan, especially when we have offsetting commitments, and Japan would just reach back out to the U.S. No East Asia prolif Green 18 security over here to take the mainstream and demand sign drivers seriously. The current strategy debate on knowledge. Other emphasizes that multiple migration constraints, even if withdrawal increasing uncertainty, visitors have high hills declines. Sanctuary remain. East Asia have lives dominated by trade coalition and like risk coercion. Provide veto points. There's not many oppositional nationalists. So Taiwan are exposed to Chinese coercion. The terrorists are all cause Taiwan outweighs the sovereignty, not economic issue. Him cards about an issue linkage with Taiwan. They have no evidence about terrorists and proliferation. They all causing the him card. Taiwan's key. It's a sovereignty issue. It's a national third above China, and in front of their national sovereignty and legitimacy. The plan means that with repair relations, they come together to resolve other issues. COVID doesn't speak to proliferation. Taiwan's much bigger because of sovereignty. Same thing with the media. Thumper that was above. Yes, they hurt relations. The him card is more specific about how proliferation is a specific thing that China uses to bargain with. T. Pearson, we meet first. Their evidence has no intent to exclude. Does not definitely say that substance are not sweeping or not reduction. Counterinterpretation absence about the viability of an existing FS or DCS program. DoD 17 substantially reducing unsigned international agreements to find the quantity that the viability of any FS or DCS prefer it versus less sweeping ass don't align with any modern topic literature that forces into the worst ceiling staff that loses every pig and has no solvency advocate. Second is arbitrariness. No one knows what qualitative means. That means their interpretation unlimits the topic. Third is predictability. Resolution language of the gold standard. Pearson uses arm transfers, which is nowhere in the topic. Fourth, function limits, solve limits and graph. You have advantage diversity and generis reasonability. Community interpretations cause substance. Crowd of the maritime counterplan permutation to both. It would reassure allies because it would increase the cooperation with them and a signal of higher deterrent posture towards China. And it doesn't solve it. Look like containment. China will not trust the U.S. on relation to Taiwan issues. Arvin says that Taiwan's a gateway issue to solving anything, even if the counterplan wouldn't look aggressive itself, which is what their evidence assumes. In conjunction with the South arms cells, it looks threatening, like a counterbalancing coalition. Here says that containment posture causes a self-fulfilling prophecy. Conditionality is a voting issue. It eliminates clash in 2AC times gratitude, undermines procedural fairness and education. Dispositionality assaults their offense. The recommend counterplan. Trump says no. He'll entirely ignore everyone's Zekim. And 18 there's no lead in the principal committee. President by clear here was on the issue trusting legitimate. Neither request or interest in advice given erratic nature. The belief he is only the genius of the government challenge is to survive with the base for blind support of Trump will cow legislation into action. He only follows his gut. Daedler's 19 Trump has 3 different advisors all failed press the same process and follows his gut decidedly. Mercurial, that especially links in the context of the card they read in the one. So saying that Trump loves arms sales. He would never want to reduce some permutation to both. Permutation to the counterplan. It's an example of the plan. We never said reduce without recommendation. Permutation to the after the mechanism of the counterplan, which would mean that the pressure would happen, and then the ask fiat would happen. That's key to test the germaneness of the benefit. It links to politics. It still does the plan. Requires fighting, and Congress people have the same political incentives. It doesn't matter if one group of the State Department says otherwise. Private actor fiat is bad. It's unpredictable, not reciprocal. A slippery slope to utopian object fiat, which kills off ground and research skills are interpretations. You have to fiat the USG to pressure private actors. Permutation to the plan into the complex process. Actually, skip that perm. They target the Taiwan fiat counterplan. Fiating the recipient of the planned sales is a voting issue. It's object fiat that kills off ground because everyone they see is built on the actions of a target country that they can just fiat the change immediately, which kills fairness in education. Our interpretation, you can pressure the target country not to buy arms, otherwise they take the teeth out of the topic controversy. It doesn't solve war because China will never believe the U.S. committing to a binding drawn agreement of containment because Taiwan could always resume sales. Only the absence of signal that Congress is on China's side. Permutation do both. Taiwan reducing arms sales shields the U.S. reputation because no one would perceive the U.S. as backing off of East Asia. It does not solve proliferation. There's no impact on the border-U.S. relationship because it isn't a signal of good faith. The politics there is no link. The COVID bill is so necessary to Trump that it won't matter what happens to Taiwan. There's obviously no spillover, and the issues are compartmentalized. The arms industry might get mad about the app, but why would they retaliate by disrupting a COVID bill that would help them? Those are totally disconnected. They would retaliate in a different way. No econ wars, judgment 16, recession that lead to deterioration. Security not density econ conflict that face modest, i.e. P report the peace in 2012 is the same as 27th. Violence and military expenditures decline. Let's say circumvent recessions not trigger conflict patterns of stability crisis not generate predictions. That's just some other country stuff that was crossing. The bill only helps U.S. economy, which means that China, Italy, all of Europe could collapsing still cause the same impact. Trump should have lashed out already. The Dow's down, the economy is collapsing. There's no distinction between what happens after this bill and what's happening now. Phase 4 stimulus bill is assured and inevitable. Nothing is disrupted. Schlesinger and Jimison 329 Schumer predicted this is not the end. Both parties are working out the quarters of another emerging package or general recognition that we need something to debate together, juice in the economy and law committee reacted with speed. And the phase 4 will not be passed till the end of May. Regulators 331 Congress will get back to the April 28th remote when this look like it's for stimulus package unlikely before late May. Salt is a political dynamite and will pass. The recessions inevitable regardless of stimulus. Larian 317 the global economy will go into recession this year. Both have many economies were already equipped to handle shocks. Issues risk taking and central bank bonds. The artificial price volatility have been planning season stability. Coronavirus is destroying supply and demand layoffs cause income losses, which is insane and consistent with growth. Stock Broward will see huge volatility downward in inflation structure volatility won't be easier to restore modern expect the global economy after the health threat restoring normal levels will take time. AF happens through least restrictive means to pass safely through unanimous consent, which solves the link forward for 15 lawmakers who are resisting return. Congress retains the ability to pass legislation through unanimous consent. Resolutions and bailouts and stimulus do not solve economic crash from COVID. Blythe 320 U.S. growth is cannot shut down with the leaders to companies temporary benefits, not some permanent cash transfers, and not some permanent cash transfers, and the reopening the United States by the U.S. response to other country economies will sustain less damage than the U.S. economy and will rebound faster. I'm gonna read another card on the Taiwan war advantage. Chinese asymmetric defense tactics break U.S. posture. Gilsman on 19. Whether it gives the Chinese the measuring geography, China visits Taiwan. Use can consistently eject preparing defenses that with authority and use much missiles and ships on airplanes reach U.S. bases in Japan. God the Chinese on the comprehensively the U.S. over on Taiwan can be accomplished in a finite time. Making concessions solves Yoder 18 version early power shape favor and forward investing in the rights of future intense for elsewhere. Then focus the client state optimal orbital strategy and great cooperation with the United States while opposing hostile types. Another card hostile types. Those are both on Taiwan war.
And I sent out that additional card that you read on politics.
Just let us know when we have that. When you have that card.
Did you get the card? Okay. Ready for cross?
Yeah.
Okay. On the first advantage, did you read all the cards that you sent out?
No, I didn't read the second. I didn't read the second Kastner card, and I didn't read. Yeah, that's the only. I didn't read the second Kastner card.
Okay. And on the second advantage?
Second advantage, I did not read Glacier, and I did not read O.
Okay, great. First, your Bernard evidence, it only references studies based on two different regions, such as Vietnam versus Berlin. Why does this apply for one region?
Well, that's not that's the mischaracterization of binary. It cites decades of statistical research. It cites Daryl Press and Jennifer Lind, who were the political science researchers who did these studies throughout the Cold War and after. And it concludes based on
the Cold War studies. The only studies they're talking about is Vietnam versus Berlin.
No, that's not true. That's the example the card gives, but it cites research and statistical studies, and the card explicitly talks about the Japan, Taiwan, China trilateral issue, and concludes based on decades of research that's much better than your evidence that there's no kind of credibility concerns that spread as a result of the AF.
Okay, great. On Kondo, what's the interpretation?
Disfunctionality.
No condition. Okay, dispo. Okay.
Yeah.
The Ford evidence. How does this solve politics?
The Ford evidence on politics.
Yes.
I'm confused. What do you mean? Why? How does it solve politics?
Yeah. How does it mean the? How does this?
Oh, I'm sorry. Yeah, it's okay. It says normal means under coronavirus is lawmakers are not returning to Congress. They're not debating. They're not deliberating. Which means everything that Congress has passed for the past couple of weeks has been through unanimous consent resolutions, which is normal means for the AF.
Why doesn't that mean that? Why doesn't that mean that any small lawmaker dispute stops the bill from passing?
Well, no, it doesn't, because A, there's no reason lawmaker disputes over arms sales spill over. Second, this is this is an even if argument. If we win, the plan passes this way. There's obviously no fights about it. And if not, then the other answers obviously apply. Even if it was a unanimous consent resolution, there still doesn't have to be. Still, backlash is not
great. Back on the advantage, the patent evidence. What is the hedging strategy that the U.S. is adopted like Japan?
It says an ineffective hedging. Well, Japan and U.S. is adopting an ineffective hedging strategy towards Japan with regard to Chinese modernization, and the ability to lock the U.S. out of intervention on Japan's behalf during a crisis. China's
stopping arms sales specifically. Why doesn't this evidence prove that stopping arms sales specifically means that Japan is unassured, doesn't stop China's A280 strategy?
Yeah, the argument is that they're unassured now because of the A2AD strategy. Taiwan arms sales
Okay, great.
Taiwan arms sales can't offset China's ability to anti-ship missile our bases in Guam. Arms sales
Okay,
are
the
disconnected.
green evidence, how does it apply to new Abe Trump talks?
The green, do you want to take prep for that?
That's class.
Okay,
That's fine.
Okay, Sam taking a bit of prep.
He's taking a bit of prep.
You guys can minimize feedback by muting yourself. Like your partners shouldn't both have your mic on during cross-ex, or else we're getting a lot of reverb.
Okay.
Okay, you're doing what do you call it? Assurances. Yeah, that should be good. I'm doing assurances.
Yeah, we can hear you prepping, so you might want to mute yourself.
Oh wait, did you mute yourself?
You need to mute yourself.
Not muted. Okay, stop prep. 9:15 left. Hello?
That's good.
Okay, I'm gonna go to the bathroom real quick before the transition. Did everyone get it?
I'm going to say for this speech, given the audio quality of 1AC cross-sex, it'd be better if you did it with your video off.
Video off.
Yeah, because I can't really
Cool.
flow with your video on.
Okay, so is it clear now? Yeah, okay.
Yeah, much better.
Yep. So the order will be advantage 1 and then advantage 2. Oh, it says I'm not able to send the message. Wait, did you guys get the?
Yeah, I think just one of the
Doc.
emails
I got it.
is typed in wrong.
Yeah.
So it should.
Oh,
Sorry
okay.
about that.
Right. Is everyone good?
Give me 1 second.
Right.
Okay, I'm good.
Cooperation with Taiwan is high now. We have maintained a strong alliance through increased arms sales and consistent commitments to the defense. These commitments have helped Taiwan participate in an offensive realist stance that's prevented conflict. U.S. efforts are high now. Take no business approach that's covered. 19. There are multiple signs by U.S. backing Taiwan's congressional Congress passed TAA, which accepts the first support while urging defense spending. Listed recommends which to continue sales defense articles and backs always is having an organization to Trump to team and need funding which is transited the straight in several locations. China has stated the U.S. would no longer tiptoe around. Yes, there is a link. The F-16s are key to deterring China and ensuring U.S. leadership. Number 1, battlefield awareness. The 2AC has dropped it. They feature endorsement group scalable agile beam radar, which allows each fighter to target a dozen of enemies, including harder track low fighters, low flying fighters, and drones at long ranges. And independent of Saber, infrared search and track can scan for heat signatures, which China can't conceal. That's the one in street evidence. And 2, invisibility. Chinese missile can't reach the F-16s. Each time 19. The Taitung Air Force Base Pacific Coast will host on service of the new F-16B taking advantage of the rugged mountains that run through the central Taiwan service national security against
air missiles have seen also guarded the Pacific coast against any attacks launched by CPLA for these hangars and Hishu air almost full through necessary, not just sufficient. Thing 18, the participate U.S. fighters is a necessity considering that the islands are under draft from Beijing. New F-16 fighters fighters just would seamlessly with the current air force U.S. government arsenals is for the purpose of burning conflict across the Taiwan Strait and by selling weapons to Taiwan. The U.S. is reducing the chance of integration with Beijing will start a war. They say Taiwan. They say Taiwan is key because stated commitments. No, China is an offensive realist. A century of humiliation is implanted in their institutional memory. Ever since the unequal treaties with Britain, France, and Spain, their government has urged for its military dominance and anti-Western practices. Instead of being a sitting duck, they'll preempt the threat before Taiwan returns. Now, Brand says U.S. leadership is good, but also says China gaining power is bad. It means that we don't need to win a complete U.S. hedge impact, even though we will. Naval alliances of Choi 18, a Western job system leader, China's produce a gold hedge on China is deeply involved in North Korea, nuclear the SES. China has revisionist aims. Beijing is considered a concentrated item modernization. Beijing adopted aggressive foreign policy in international security. China has been after East South China Sea. Beijing like Taiwan is a core national interest. China is central islands. Beijing is investing in national vessels, submarines, and aircraft carriers. I see it becomes important for the energy raw materials and all goods. Beijing is becoming avoids dissatisfaction with the existing order. Beijing, FI starting point for significant Chinese global economy and financial governance. China is willing to become a global hegemony once upon its Middle Kingdom. The U.S. and that card also says that it also sees Tibet as a core national interest, which is an all cause as defense to the advantage. They say China only escalates when it's losing. This card assumes that China thinks that they could win while they're losing. F-16s means that they have no chance at doing this, so they wouldn't escalate because China knows that they wouldn't be able to successfully take them out because they're so invisible. That was the death card read at the bottom of the 1 and C. They say China does not want to be the global hegemon. That was answered above with the revisionist. They say deterrence is unsustainable. Yes, U.S. leadership is sustainable in the region. That was assumed in the uniqueness evidence, and the F-16s are a game changer. The evidence does not assume that China literally will not be able to take down the planes because they won't know where they are. They say research disproves the link. This says that countries do not keep commitments, so this takes out their second advantage because it means that China won't keep the implicit quid pro quo by reducing proliferation in response to the plan. It doesn't actually talk about F-16 reductions because we're not necessitating that China does anything. We're just saying that China will be scared of F-16s, and the plan reduces that deterrence. They say arms sales do not impact the power balance. This was this again not a single word about the F-16 specific link in a specific link in our evidence. They say China breaks A2AD. This card says that China has advantages like downing planes. Again, the F-16s are a game changer because they have stealth capabilities. The all-cause debate. 2 all causes to U.S.-China war. 1, U.S. deployment. We're planning on deploying intermediate range missiles in Asia to exert territorial control. China has made official statements that will take countermeasures, withdraw from the INF. And number 2, withdraw from the INF. U.S. is pulled out of the INF, and China has no intention of reducing its nuclear arsenal because it's worried about U.S. nukes because the nuclear arms race inevitable extinction. That's our voting evidence. They say that Taiwan is more important than anything else because China cares about it way more than the U.S. But the main problem here is that the Alpha relies on Chinese statements while we rely on empirics. Means that you should frame this debate through tangible examples overall as all costs of war. Taiwanese missile production acts 86. Taiwan has cleared young cruise missile mass production. The Asian on layman's attack missile supply 1,200 missiles. Deploying a new aerological cruise missile and a reverse J85 engine. The powers attack aircraft. The Taiwanese arsenal includes missiles with later strike Chinese airports and harbors and missiles and radar productions. Taiwan Taipei acquired the license to locally produce additional launchers. The new naval combat system similar to Aegis. The innovation Taiwan can be challenging for China military retaliation, but the United States could doom the attack. Second advantage. Tariffs are causing U.S.-China relations to crumble, even if policy shifted. Economic decoupling is different by firms' decision to divest, which erodes the architecture of the relationship. That's our profit evidence. Unless they have a recent card that contextualizes the plans all of to the tariff debate and the auto industry, they can't physically rebuild U.S.-China ties. The relationship cannot get worse. Even if it did, it wouldn't cause war. The problem is structural and induced by macroeconomics. So minor policy changes can't reverse the trend. That's more 19. Their author after 2 rounds of tariff increases, the floor can be too far below as economy and social decoupling is like that, and the risk of competition continues to rise. Our relations have been on downward slides since the 2008 financial crisis. China challenged supremacy in Asia, investment in hypersonic missiles and investments. China's attempted to screw the domestic distance. Beijing may use for market liberalization. But business community, Beijing community is a nation of every constitution in favor of relations to Washington. The loss, reciprocal pebbles, conflict remains a good way off. It can't be reversed. It's already spilled over into areas of cooperation, but still, we've bad enough cause war. This answers their issue linkage arguments. Since media 96, the other 2 largest economies are in the early stages of their second Cold War economy. For Trump was in position over here, and it will damage the relations of AD escalating their trade. The trade conflict has become multifaceted. Disputed concerning geopolitical issues. I don't think I have a justice for war. Framing issue for this page as well. They rely on Chinese statements linking the linking arms sales to to non-proliferation, but only we have evidence that says that they could possibly link other things like Tibet to the same thing. The newer all-causes coronavirus. Trump is blaming them, and China is enraged. Their diplomats have made official statements saying they will take countermeasures. That's their letterman. The same thing. On another all-cause media, Washington has suppressed China's state-owned media, and China has expelled U.S. journalists. China will take further countermeasures. That's my evidence. Now, arms sales do not impact relations. They're fine. App authors conclude Gomez 16. There was a national time. Trump to restore Trump's Taiwan. Official relations to Beijing. What I expect this would increase body as weapons. It would also deter. It would also deepening ties with uncertainty. I'm sorry. So go back to the first advantage. I'm going to read one more card on the link. Interoperability allows coordination with allies and with other jets like F-35 with F-35's brand A-20. Warplanes are operatively coordinated their operation across Japan. Okinawa interoperability is here for ASIS systems for key attributes resistant enemy jamming. I make it very look at them. Regions are more reliable with mechanic systems. They if you future multiple functionality they can locate ASEAN island targets. I simultaneously FCA 16 AV radar can handle up to 20 targets. 17 stars and senior sensors can produce high quality reconnaissance. Supports a new gives one aircraft the ability to fix target design. Another half one system with the responsibility to kill the target compatibility. American F-35s, Taiwan's F-16Vs means size coordinate operations effectively. Now we're going to impact some of the red lines argument. A signal of threatening red lines is key to deterrence. That's French forcing the U.S. must keep China is committed to upholding the status quo. The U.S. sense signal like Chinese leaders preconceptions consider clarity and critical. Any ambiguity will pick up as skeptics on automatic deterrence. China will be receptive to U.S. threats, but it will be skeptical. The U.S. signal send showed additional more effective strategy. Whatever reasoning will make China's discount skeptical Chinese leaders will be ineffective.
You good?
Yeah.
Cool. My first question, do you have any evidence saying that Taiwan can actually defeat China in a conflict?
So two things. Number one is that we don't need to win, that China will defeat Taiwan in a conflict. If we win, that F-16s. Yeah, I'm explaining that if we win, that F-16s can deter China. We've cited several cards about one, the effectiveness of F-16s, and two, the perception of China.
Okay, so it's a question of deterring China from attacking in the first place, correct?
Yeah.
Right.
The second thing is that even if it,
I'm gonna move on. The Carpenter,
okay.
the first card you read was the Carpenter card. The conclusion of that article, I'm gonna read it to you. U.S. leaders and the American people need to ask themselves whether they're really willing to risk war with a nuclear armed power to protect Taiwan. The prudent answer clearly should be no. Why is this a neg card?
So that just says like nuclear war with China would be bad. So two things.
It says the U.S. shouldn't risk war with China to protect Taiwan. It says the U.S. should not arm Taiwan. Like, why is this?
No. It does not say the U.S. should not not arm Taiwan. It just no. The line you just read was like the U.S. should not go to nuclear war with another great power. Obviously, like
over
we
Taiwan.
want to avoid nuclear war.
Okay, that's great.
Over anything.
Sure. How does escalation happen in the world of your dishad scenario?
Sure. So when you like stop the sales of F-16s, China will see that as a sign of weakness, and they'll see that number one, the U.S. is less committed to the region, and number two, Taiwan has less things to defend themselves with.
Okay.
So they will probably invade or force reunification.
Okay. So they invade Taiwan. All right. So the impact is just in Chinese invasion of Taiwan, correct?
No, the impact is like U.S.-China war in that like the invasion of Taiwan will cause other adventurism of China because Taiwan is the key sector.
But do you have to win that China invades Taiwan post-AF to win an internal link?
Not necessarily, but what's
the other internal link?
So all of their offensive realist evidence, so like the 1 and C card and like the Choi card I read, are like China is making broader, expansion because they're perceiving the U.S. as a declining power and they want to be a global hegemon. This just the plan itself reverses perception.
Great. The Taiwan cruise missiles argument, they're doing that indigenously, correct?
Yeah.
Why does that not deter China, even if the U.S. were to cut off sales?
So the main thing is that our arguments about deterrence are specific to F-16s, right? So missiles alone or any big weapons are not enough to solve. The F-16s are uniquely key because like interoperability, battlefield awareness, invisibility.
I agree you have arguments about why F-16s are key, but this card about missiles, say the Taiwanese arsenal includes missiles with sufficient range to strike the Chinese mainland. They bolster the fighter fleet by increasing combat effectiveness and providing the capability to strike. Like why does that?
Correct. So
that's your card. I just read your card. Why does that not?
I agree. No, because the missiles did not necessarily stop Chinese invasion. The cards that we have about Chinese perception in
okay,
response to
that's
F-16s are
fine. It says an invasion of Taiwan would be
also
daunting.
China has missile defense. Yeah. He's sending it out right now.
Okay. Is anyone not ready? The order will be maritime security, recommend, target country, politics, then the relations advantage. Is anyone not ready? Okay. Maritime security not going for projectile into the team. Condo's good 3 reasons. 1, neg flex offside bias now to your first and last speech for and advantage flexibility. Allowing the Tweezy to pick and choose the block. Rex negative strategy was the key in controlling to fairness. Very superior to babies. We can only get benefits if both teams can equally engage. 2 Tweezy critical thinking. Condo incentivizes the Tweezy to only put the best offense in each. So he is decision making that can be applied outside way to solve complex problems. 3 real world building coverage attacks from multiple viewpoints at the same time. Condo is advocates that can defend their claims against a diverse set of opposers. Recommend counterplay not going for projectile to the team. Target country counterplay not going for projectile to the team. The politics is that concede other countries hard, concede face forward, pass, concede no impact. We're not going for it. Relations advantage. Allied proliferation happens because they think the U.S. is accommodating China causing nuclear war. 1 preemptive first strikes. The allies are fearful. They will act first to prevent being the victims. 2 trust case of no alliance. Then miscalc is more likely because there's no communication between the U.S. and East Asia. China will respond rapidly, which creates Japan and Soka always on time frame. Conspiracy trigger irrational response. Korean actors can solve miscalc, but they ask for doom as to nuclear war. Regional insecurity turns solves. It means China can't rise peacefully. That's grade 13. China's less likely to rise peacefully in a rapid power when the mainland attempted to adventure such an empowered military nationalists and at the expense of cooperative relations. China has a shortly 30 regions where the U.S. increases the military footprints. The U.S. has a that has a saving the external environment. No impact at peace spoiling. 1, its uses no enforcement mechanism. 2, countries like Japan won't proliferate and was threatened by China means they can't access the East Asian proliferate. 3, other countries don't have capabilities to proliferate besides Japan and Soka. And the troops, Taiwan outweighs troops. First, Taiwan outweighs everything East 16. Abandonment of Taiwan would be a greater shock for the financial crisis or Ukraine conflict because it is 100 seconds of policy. Fuel arms race and diminishing security as alliances are based on shared values and political policies behind cooperation. 2, Trump, Alaska, East from before Trump moved assurances to Taiwan and Taiwanese assurances because his rhetoric. 3, unilateral change, reducing arms sales, or unilateral change that destroys assurances. They think they're next. Let's recap Alaska 19. We're yellow. When the U.S. unilaterally reduces its allies become alarmed to ensure security is sustainable, overstretch doesn't matter. Only stopping arms sales does. It's like 18. This consensus is strong. If China is not about to overtake the U.S., China will fall behind GDP. Indicator travel measures. They fail to track repowers. Then for a little better. The courts talking predicting international disputes. 19th century Russia had Europe's largest GDP rate, suffered crushing defeats by UK, France, and European Germany that culminated in collapse. The Soviet Union outpaces the U.S. Resources. The link is linear. That's 17. The Japanese, like the Koreans, can reassure another exactly given current elements of regional security and boost Trump. You can priority address the anxieties, ensuring its allies remain confident in security guarantees. Where security commitments are strong now. 3 words. First, recent meetings prefer recency. The evidence is from before U.S.-Japan talks that assuage concerns. That's Algeria 527. Trump and Abe spent the weekend on the other side of good relations between the 2 countries. Abe and Trump emphasized the strength of the alliances, divide policy, and disagreements over trade. No good Trump described the relationship as a core show that security across the world. 2, famine is overblown. That's Cabinet 18. There are opposites that made romances all over, or way over overblown Japan, especially after Trump's meeting with Kim. These subsided Tokyo thinks through economic dialogue, the country to find path for pro-growth policy. The alliance in the whole culture in the Pacific in the face of Chinese expansion. This may be bigger than Trump 3 Trump's recent actions as COVID-19. As the presidency unfolds, Trump has switched away from campaign to a good diplomatic relations with Koreans and Japanese. This is one of the clear lines of Trump narrative. Trump has approved a stronger military diplomatic measures to Asia. Trump's military expansion publicly abandoned Asian has been gradually dissolved. Trump from a long-standing security alliance with Japan and operates for the relief that Trump's self-policy directed in no stating U.S. and Japan share the same views that formulated stronger Japanese role. Allow Trump strategy generated stability builds the hub and spoke system and fundamental alliances refer to recency and the internal debate plan destroys assurances. F-16 specific evidence is really good. First, stopping offensive arms deals freaks out Japan ears their uses. That's Hobbits 15. Even if the U.S. believes they can achieve security through defensive approaches, the allies are not sharing this conviction. The allies attach and disability and more tradition about arms. So even where forces have really impact on the military abilities, allies prefer robust offensive operations because they indicate failure to fight aggressively, mostly full application of U.S. powers and unlike good. Two F-16 sales are a key test of U.S. commitment to alliances in the region. That's up to 19. This sales to Taiwan is an important aspect of political defense strategy. So there's indication dialogue about U.S. commitment. U.S. will not only have foreign opportunities that demonstrates commitment that the allies requested the U.S. to see Empire aircraft Taiwan an integral aspect of Indo-Pacific strategy. There's no compartmentalization. The evidence lies on distinguishing policy, increasing forces, and deepening position which they don't fear. Trump will do profile ways. First time frame, rapid acquisition make misstep more likely. Flames global hotspots. 2 turns crisis instability. The scale of proof creates more diets. Proof to misstep that's correct. 3 error negative. The past 70 years prove the score is stable. All of it goes nuclear quickly and forces nuclear arms around the globe. That's standard 17. In that nuclear South Korea, the amount of risk of nuclear war in East Asia will be much greater than how much China uses nuclear races becomes more complex than within China facing two potential nuclear threats. Open the door, nuclear not failed to encourage passive regional races to nuclear weapons. They use weapons in Pacific in the Middle East, Latin America, and Africa. The risk of nuclear war will both the manhood and far higher than at the present. I'm good.
Okay, we have 903.
Yeah, 903.
I stop prep 5:30. I sent out the oath.
Cool.
Okay, is everybody good for an order?
Yes.
It's going to be the Taiwan flow and then the prolif flow, and both are straight down in the order, and the 2 and C's first in the order on so like defense first on the prolif flow. Is anybody not ready? Sweet. Structural uniqueness means the debate is over. We've read 3 pieces of evidence that the United States cannot balance China long-term, and allies know it. We've read the here evidence, the FAT evidence, and the Gilzina evidence that says Chinese A2AD, asymmetric capabilities, U.S. budget sequestration vis-a-vis the Middle East, and the geography means defense wins champions, and China will shut us out of the region. Their Carpenter evidence is short-term and about U.S. signaling, but not about long-term strategy, and concludes the other way. That was process. The link debate. All of their analysis assumes that they can get the plans off the ground, but they will get first struck. Lindsay 19, Taiwan's an specialist main battle takes a very expensive semi-docs new fighter jets. In the event a conflict would be destroyed by KLA missiles on the runway, the Taiwanese are committing themselves to an arms race. They do not have the means to win. They have no evidence that F-16s are sufficient for Taiwan to beat China. Obviously, that's ridiculous. They have surveillance capabilities, and they could bomb the heck out of the islands. They would wreck Taiwan. Japan times 19. The F-16 won't change the balance. Taiwan will continue to need other advanced capabilities. China's sophisticated short-range ballistic missiles could every runway. Taiwan's hot fighter races destroy essentially all aircraft. All of their deterrence evidence assumes that China can't be deterred. We've read a piece of more evidence that says that Taiwan is a core issue and that they perceive backing down as treason and key to CCP legitimacy, which means it's existential to them. Their only answer, well, offensive realism is true. That's not responsive because in the context of Taiwan, no red line can be sufficient to deter them, which answers the red line argument because Taiwan is the one red line that we can never get them to back down on because they perceive it as existential. Offensive realism is wrong. Even if it's true, we can still win. Limited cooperation is good and accommodation in limited sense to prevent short-term word. But their defensive realist, the Jalil evidence is they're a regional economic defensive power. They've engaged in the WTO. They've settled border disputes. They've engaged in 42 UN mechanisms peacefully. The 2 and Choi evidence assumes Chinese naval aggression occurs in a vacuum. Our evidence says it occurs in reaction to U.S. containment, which they perceive as hostile, which is proven by the fact that they only put assets in the SES after we increase U.S. FON ops. Their impact is obviously ridiculous. They have 0 piece of evidence that F-16s are the linchpin of U.S. global strategy or solve U.S. leadership. Even then, if China occupies Taiwan post-F, we solve because we sever the TRA and credibility concerns. The defense, IMF, doesn't matter. The here evidence says China is fine with U.S. stronger containment policy because they perceive U.S. as the linchpin, which means the plan solved. They have no evidence that any of these things are sufficient to cause war, just that they might increase tensions in the short term. It's not just Chinese statements. The more evidence cites 60 IR experts and says that Taiwan is categorically different from Tibet and everything. It's a sacred commitment. Read the F after the round. The Taiwan cruise missile solves the link, but it doesn't trigger the app because 1, the U.S. doesn't get drawn in, and 2, the here evidence says they're fine with broader issues as long as U.S. backs down. Prolif. Tariffs don't matter. Our evidence is explicitly comparative and says it's an economic question, not a question of sovereignty, which means it's less likely to flare up tensions. Even then, our evidence is specific to issue linkages. Even if broader relations are structurally bad, cooperation over non-prolif is still possible, and we have specific internal link evidence. Even then, the plan solves those. Taiwan is a core issue, which means the plan resolves the perception of containment because it's such a big concession to them, which means it increases goodwill. Yes, issue linkages. Group the next 2 arguments. The him evidence cites empirics and Chinese statements and says that they use it as a tool of retaliation and they'd be less likely to back down. It also cites interviews of Chinese officials. There's no all causes. Again, these are blips on a radar, but not big enough to collapse relations. Yes, arms sales are key. Trump has increased the pace and the worth of them. Only our evidence assumes offensive arms, which there doesn't. The dis had proper. Obviously, we access this on a much, much broader scale because they can see that NPT collapses inevitable in the SWO and that China is giving those countries nuclear turret. It doesn't turn the other advantage because the plan increases goodwill and cooperation, which decrease the risk of miscalculation. Classify all of my structural uniqueness analysis. Their only responsive card at best is the Beckley card, which 1, doesn't assume defense wins championships. Even if China GDP is not as high, which is the only word in the card, they still have defensive capabilities that can shut the U.S. out of the region. Second is that only our evidence speaks to allied perceptions. Our FAT evidence says that U.S. is overstretching and that allies always know it, which means vis-a-vis bandwagoning is inevitable in the long term. The other three uniqueness cards they read are all short terms about short-term meetings. None of them speak to the geopolitical reordering of Asia, which our evidence says is inevitable. There's no prolif. They didn't really answer this well because the Tantor card is describing if China were to get, if Soko and Japan were to get nukes, it would cause war. That might be true, but the 2AC evidence says that they wouldn't nuclearize in the first place because things like sanctions and veto players within the democracies would stop it. Also, they know that China would first strike, which means there's no incentive to. NPT and deterrence checks Japan prolif. Richie 18, the research South Korea. That's Richie 18. The research argument is reductive. RK nuclear weapons require RK to withdraw from NPT, disrupt political relationship, radically mutually on the nuclear deterrence with the risk of inadvertent rapid escalation. DPRK capabilities aimed at Washington, not so reassurance is overplayed, market overplayed, and no Japan prolif. Forward 17, where Japan ever developed nukes, not likely nuclear allergy. Japan would require collapse of the alliance, would face serious operational political obstacles. People working on certain makes it very vulnerable. Food based to deploy, making it vulnerable. First strike acquisition would violate the Constitution. EDOP. They've been obvious, difficult time taking public historical nuclear will entail leaving the NPT sanction would follow every time. The use of exam, they acknowledge this reality, and all of their link analysis relies on credibility thesis, and it's just like people from the National Review asserting that if U.S. were to abandon Taiwan, then South Korea and Japan would cut ties. We have decades of research. The binary evidence says that disproves that commitment on one issue spills over to the other. It gives the example of the USSR to prove that countries compartmentalize their view and would just counterbalance vis-a-vis the United States because it's a bilateral relationship, not a multilateral one. Other alliances are different and will compartmentalize. Laser 15 reliability concerns are overstated. Security interest, Japan, much greater alliance, involves much stronger commitments. Integration, military, U.S. has a clear rationale for ending its commitment to Taiwan. Taiwan increased the probability of war. The U.S. should distinguish the policy. U.S. could increase force to Japan, deepen joint milling, military high level discussion. Dow could work harder to strengthen the U.S. alliance, not to abandon it.
Cool. We're gonna start prep. We have 9:15 left.
Sorry, is that time? I might have it wrong.
Oh, that is time. I'm sorry.
That's fine.
Yep. No cards, obviously. The Taiwan war advantage and then the relations advantage.
You're going to be starting on the top of the Taiwan war advantage.
Yeah, there will be like a really brief overview, and then I'll go straight into the line by line, like offensive stuff.
Okay.
Right. You can hear me okay? Cool, perfect. Anyone not good? Cool. This debate comes down to specificity of evidence to vote after. They need to provide cards that answer our specific arguments about F-16 effectiveness and how China perceives the jets. Broad arms sales evidence doesn't cut it at the TOC. The structural uniqueness argument at the top. One, we can stop the conflict with F-16s right now. China will invade Taiwan as soon as the plan passes, and to see that as an opportunity to offset broader U.S. hegemony in places like Africa, other spots of Asia, and broader expansions by upending U.S. spheres of influence. The plan just makes it worse because it gives them that one opportunity to show that the U.S. is weak. The next argument is that AF does actually increase overstretch because the decrease in F-16s means that we have to have more meetings to reassure allies and things like that to that actually result in more spending as a result of the plan. The third argument is that if they win this, if anything, it means that extinction is inevitable because we're winning the impact analysis that China wants to be the global hegemon. I.e., if the U.S. is going to decline in East Asia, inevitably that means that China will try to upset the global order and cause nuclear war. Inevitably means that you should just vote negative on presumption just based on the impact analysis. The uniqueness debate, the cooperation with Taiwan is high now. We have maintained a strong alliance through increased arms sales and consistent commitments to their defense. These commitments have helped Taiwan participate in an offensive realist stance that prevents a conflict because China perceives the threats of invasion as too high. They say it's completely irrelevant. They say current weapons are useless, but this is completely irrelevant because right now it's about stance and resolve right now because China thinks that the U.S. Will invade them. They say, and the F-16s adds tangible effectiveness, meaning that the F-16 provides Taiwan a way to retaliate and actually strike some damage against China. They dropped the carbon evidence that says we have successfully increased funding for the region, which means which takes out the structural uniqueness claims of the F-16 link debate. F-16s are critical to Taiwan deterrence. Two card arguments frame how you read this evidence. Their evidence in this part of the debate. One, China perceives F-16s as effective. Chinese news outlets have admitted that F-16s stopped Chinese expansion and invasion of Taiwan. Empirical negative. In April 2018, F-16s were effectively used to disrupt Chinese bomber formations. That's our data evidence that went dropped throughout the debate. This means they can win the F-16s are useless or preclude an effective asymmetric strategy. This debate is about how China will respond to the plan, not how China should respond to treating red lines as a prerequisite to effective deterrence. We have impacts from their argument about appeasing China. Aiden spent about 10 seconds answering this argument that will outline your ballot. It attempts to de-escalation are problematic since they signal weakness that criminalize Chinese aggression. That's not master evidence. Crossing Chinese red lines is the best way to force them back down to the threat of U.S. involvement. That's French. The implication is that offense defense means you vote negative. They have no defense to the link since their evidence assumes that we need to avoid crossing red lines, but we have some defense to the link that F-16s prevents deterrence. The offensive realism, debate. The Japan 19 card they read does not have a warrant for why F-16s are not effective. You should prefer our evidence to take into account their actual capabilities, and F-16s will survive the first bombing of China because they're literally invisible to Chinese radars. That was the sub point 3 in the link in the 2NC that they dropped. They say Taiwan sees Taiwan as an existential group. The offensive realism debate. They've dropped structural claims about China's motivations. China's an offensive realist. Sexual humiliation is implanted in their institutional memory. I shouldn't have to reinvent the wheel on examples like unequal treaties that make them towards anti-Western military dominance. The Brands evidence says U.S. leadership is good, but also China is gaining power. Means they have conceded we don't have to win U.S. hedge writ large to win. They've dropped a part in the Choi evidence that says China has linked things like Tibet to national security, which means that number one, Taiwan is not the most important issue, which means that they don't solve advantage one. And two is that they don't solve advantage two because issue linkages are just guides so that Taiwan can take advantage of the U.S.'s good nature. They will move on to Tibet as soon as we concede on Taiwan, rather than non-proliferation. They have no solvency for advantage two. They say the UN and broader disputes. The Choi evidence was dropped. Naval alliances are causing Chinese dominance. They want to be the global hegemon. The reason that they're doing things like UN disputes, UN negotiations and border disputes is just to gain influence. You should see the example that they have in the Choi evidence about the IFI. China wants economic and political tactical dominance as well. They say they temper the TA. This is a TRA. This is another link means that China won't be able to be deterred. The increments argument is just an assertion. So you should prefer the offensive realism of the arguments above. Two all causes to U.S.-China war. One all cause to U.S.-China war. U.S. deployment. We're planning on deploying intermediate range missiles in Asia to exert territorial control. So China will see that as threatening. China can't wreck Taiwan. Two, consider warrants. One, indigenous defense. China will produce indigenous defense if we stop selling. Two, even if they unify Taiwanese public opposition and sovereignty means war is inevitable. That's Bush and Rieger. Actually, scratch the indigenous defense argument. Relations advantage. Tariffs do not matter. They're causing U.S.-China relations to crumble. Even if policy shifted, economic decoupling is driven by firm decisions to divest would erode the architectural relationship. That's our profit evidence. Unless they have a recent card that contextualizes the plans, all of plans to the tariff debate and the auto industry, they can't physically rebuild U.S.-China ties.
And how much prep did we have?
I believe it was 5:30.
Yeah, that's
Sorry.
what I have.
Okay, 5:30 starting now.
Yeah, that's what I had to.
All right. Is everyone good for me to give an order? It will be the relations advantage, then the Taiwan war advantage. I'm just gonna do the defense that he did at the bottom of the 2NR on top of the Taiwan war advantage. Then it'll be the offense portion. Sorry, I was muted. Is anyone not good? Good? Okay. Vote having a high risk of an external global proliferation. Back the 2NR had all of 9 seconds on a severely mitigated and linked turn. Taiwan offense said the proliferation causes nuclear war. Quotes and concede impact causes using losing pressures, global escalation in the Middle East, East Asia, Africa, Europe, etc., which outweighs the magnitude because multiple countries get drawn in, and we've won evidence about how the U.S. does not get drawn into a Taiwan conflict in the world. That this had the only line by line arguments are blib leaks, and they dropped all the one air stuff. First is the tariffs argument. They dropped the more card saying Taiwan is a sovereignty issue, a national third rail compared to economic issues. It doesn't matter because we've evidence about specific issue linkages in that China links Taiwan policy to proliferation, which means they have no evidence that tariffs and proliferation are linked in the same way, which means that tariffs are maybe a blip in the relationship, but nobody really cares about them at the end, especially given that Taiwan is a national third rail for China. The Tibet, I'll bring the Tibet argument right here. They didn't explain it at all. Him says Taiwan is the most important issue. It's in the context of Taiwan, and we read evidence that China is okay with the U.S. having presence in other parts of the region as long as they're not coming over Taiwan, because it's a major political signal. Even if they win the thesis of the dissad, we can still win because limited accommodation is possible even with a revisionist power, which is proven by space cooperation with the Soviet Union. The Taiwan war advantage. I'll do the defense at the top. The INF doesn't thump. It's about they've no evidence how that causes war or how it thumps the Taiwan Strait situation. The reducing arms cells is the signal that Taiwan does not have to pursue aggressive policies, and it prevents the U.S. from getting drawn in, and it shows that it pushes Taiwan to the table to make it a negotiated rather than a militarized settlement. They say Taiwan won't come to the table. That was new. The 2NR they will, because they have another choice to not get first the offensive portion. Even if they win the entire dissent, they drop that the AF severs the Taiwan Relations Act, which means the U.S. has no commitment to Taiwan. The U.S. does not get drawn in. The war does not go nuclear, which means it cannot outweigh the proliferation external impact. Structural uniqueness has been mishandled the entire debate. All the negative evidence is a snapshot about status quo meetings, status quo sales, but we have a broader claim about the geopolitical reordering of East Asia. That means China will be able to defeat any U.S. guarantee, and deterrence will inevitably break down, which makes Chinese attack inevitable unless we can do the plan and push them towards non-militarized solutions with a much bigger link than any of F-16's arms cells, because it's literally a question of whether or not the U.S. could physically defend Taiwan, which is what China looks at when they're looking at the cost of war. They dropped all our evidence here. The 2NR didn't extend any evidence, so you shouldn't do the cross-line work for them from the blog. Here, evidence says that the U.S. budget declines means the strategy is unstable in the long term because they'll have to retrench inevitably. The Gomez card says Taiwan's qualitative inferiority is inevitable despite F-16s because China has military modernization. Their missile doctrine that could beat Taiwan in seconds. The Gil's not evidence is where it's at. It says defense wins championships. A2AD means that China can hit U.S. ships at 100 miles out of the region. China can overtake Taiwan without the U.S. ever getting there because China's only a few miles away and U.S. is the ocean away, which is a conceded geography argument. That means that Taiwan perceives the balance of cause and the balance of interest in their favor, which means they would never back down in the face of F-16s. China knows this, so when it's time to do it, whether invade, they will not see the cost as high, which means this triad flips out because accommodation is the only way to ensure the U.S. decline sustainability does not cause inevitable war. They say these obsessed U.S. hegemonies. Asinine to think the benchmark for global hegemony is whether or not we sell arms cells to Taiwan. They say they have caused overstretch. There's no impact to that. They say extinction is inevitable. That's not true. First, they dropped the 1C solvency mechanism. We prevent China from militarily reunifying. Castor says they'll pursue peaceful actions to kind of get a Finlandized peaceful arrangement as long as the U.S. is not militarized in conflict. Second, this assumes China wants global hegemony, which they don't, which means extinction is not inevitable. And the AF solves the linked debate. They say current weapons are key. It's about resolve. The more card is dropped there. It's not an assertion. It's like 60 IR experts saying that China is motivated by sacred premise, and they indict the theoretical logic of deterrence and raising costs. It's a matter of regime survival, a matter of nationalism, meaning that China, even if they would risk losing some people to the F-16, they would have to go to war because otherwise they know the regime would collapse and the Communist Party would lose all of its legitimacy. You should also frame that through structural needs, even if the F-16s could raise the cost. The PLA is like 10 times bigger, and there's no way you can raise the cost enough. They say it's about resolve. Binary was dropped on allies. They don't access anything outside Taiwan because China does not see resolve interconnected across the issues. They say successful funding now is unstable budget and overstretch was the hero card. They say the F-16s like the Ev. We'll take them up in the Ev check here. The Japan Times lens evidence says that the PLA is like 10 times bigger and they could blow up the F-16s on the runway even if they win as a short-term deterrence strategy that is not sustainable in the long term. They say appeasement's bad. That's a question of offensive realism. The red line, so is the red lines. I'll go there now saying I don't have to reinvent the wheel in the 2 hours. Not an excuse to drop all of the 1 hour warrants, proving that China reacts peacefully to the plan and does not cause war. Border resolution with multiple neighbors, multilateralism and cooperation on the economy proves that China is pursuing regional economic development and regional peace with neighbors, and they only respond aggressively in response to U.S. provocations like arms sales to Taiwan, which proves that they respond to accommodation positively. They say the link to Bet the Prolove that was answered above. They say the Choi aim to not drop this. They said that the Jalil card is specifically indicts this logic. It says that China is only being aggressive naval because it's a response to the U.S. F-1 ops in the South China Sea. They say it's a trick. They have no falsification, no evidence about the UN such as being a trick. Good debate, oh.
Good debate.
Yeah, I'll put together card docs.
Yep.
Yep.